What up? Welcome back. It is Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and take a look at another upcoming release list. Now, we do know that these lists, you got to take it with a grain of salt. They are about 90% accurate. Like about 2 years ago, we did see Lobo and the Space Hog on one of these lists. And it did take a while, but now we are going to be receiving the Space Hog with Lobo. And a lot of people are really anticipating that release. So that is pretty awesome. So although there is a lot of things on this list, some things may get released sooner than others, but like I said, more than likely, a lot of these things will come to fruition. Now, per usual, we will be starting off with the line that I really don't collect. I think the only figure I have picked up from Superpowers is the Batman Who Laughs, and that was just for the kookiness of the figure, the oddity. But I like to go through this list because I know some people do collect this line. I've heard a lot of people saying, like, who collects these? I see them at clearance a lot. They are selling. I have yet to see the Invisible Jet on clearance because I was actually looking for that. A lot of the Wonder Womans and the Deathstrokes were, disappearing from the shelves pretty fast. And now all you find is John Stewart, Green Lantern, and a couple of Nightwings. But obviously, the line is selling fairly well because of this list. We do see some really cool additions to the line and even some new vehicles. So I'm pretty sure if the line wasn't selling at all, they wouldn't be putting money into making more vehicles because that is a high cost for the line. I'm happy for people that collect this line and enjoy it, but I'm not a big fan of smaller figures. But there is something on this list that I must pick up and I will look for. Now, starting off, we have, I think it's like a 40th anniversary homage to the old Superpower Superman. It was like a gold figure. Mattel also did one of these. And basically, McFarlane has shown images of some gold figures coming up. So basically, I would think this would be that same Superman with a little bit of red, but a lot of gold. Now, another figure coming out in this wave is going to be Manga Batman. Now, as far as I could tell, there is like the more popular classic version of Manga Batman, and it is this, sort of cartoonish looking stylized Batman character. So that's basically what I'm putting my money on, that it's going to look like, but it looks pretty cool, pretty interesting. Now, you do have some lanterns coming out in this wave. You do have Sinestro from the Sinestro Core Wars, which would probably be your classic Sinestro. And you also got a bigger figure, probably will be around the size of the Darkseid, and that is Kilowog, who will be based on the Tales of the Green Lantern version of Kilowog, which basically is just your classic simple design for Kilowog, the green and the white. But for people who, want the lines to expand and bring in all the other outlining characters, this is pretty awesome. Now, rounding out this list, you do have some interesting stuff. You have Blue Beetle based on his Justice League International version. One of my favorite comic runs, and it's actually like a more kooky, funny version of Blue Beetle. But the most interesting thing is that they will also be releasing Blue Beetle's Bug, which of course is his ship that he uses. Now, I have yet to pick up any of the vehicles. Blue Beetle, once again, it's tempting. I would pick it up more if it was made for the 7-inch line. That would be awesome. And I would really be into McFarlane doing something with the Blue Beetle Bug, but in a way larger scale, maybe about so big. Now, that would be really interesting, and I would definitely put some green down for that. And then finally, we're going to get Brainiac in his first appearance. Now, this is the more weird version of Brainiac, where he has that like pink shirt with a collar, no pants. I don't think they give him pants a lot of the time. And he has that sort of head, gear that makes his brain good. And although I'm not too interested in the figure, what I definitely am going to be interested is in the Brainiac Skull ship. Now, this ship actually has a lot of iterations in different forms of entertainment. You have them in the cartoon, you have them in video games, in the comics. And you know me, I love skulls. I have skulls all over the place in here. Everywhere you turn, you'll find a skull randomly, stuck around. It's just something that I always enjoy. Collecting is just different skulls. So I think it would be pretty cool, to make a little room here in the office and have a display of that skull ship from Brainiac. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking out that vehicle. So for the people that love this line, that's awesome. They have actually done a number of waves and have actually gone through introducing a lot of new characters. So for the people that enjoy it, that is fantastic. Now, we had already heard word of this next wave. I just wanted to mention it again because it is on the same list. And that is going to be the next wave of Page Punchers. We do know that it is based on Superman. Now, one thing we do not know exactly is what versions of these characters it's going to be. So it's kind of up in the air. But you do have a semi-mysterious Superman that we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But it is just labeled as Superman. Then you have Superman Earth 2. Now, there could be a couple of different choices they could go with. You do have the classic older Earth 2 Superman. But then you also have Val Zod, who is also an Earth 2 Superman. I'd actually be happy with either one. Always cool to add a new Superman character to the collection. Now, there is also 2 versions of Brainiac on this list. I'm not sure if they're both gold labels. I mean, that doesn't sound right. Usually it's one standard release and then a gold label. And even Page Punchers has had gold label versions in their releases. So we don't know if it's going to be the robotic Brainiac, the old school Brainiac that had like all that like sort of android body with his brain exposed. Pretty interesting take on Brainiac. Now, this is a very iconic design for Brainiac, so I'd actually be happy to see it. I think the last time we got something like that was the DC Superheroes line, which I actually do own up there. That's an awesome figure. But they could go with a newer version, which isn't necessarily like the Injustice 2 that we just received, but it does have that purple scheme. It's a kind of a mixture of the original appearance and then a more synthetic robotic form of Brainiac. Either way, it would be pretty interesting. Now, the final figure that we don't really know what it's going to be is called the Ghost of Zod. So that's something else that still, is a mystery to us. We're not exactly sure what it will be, but pretty interesting little wave from Page Punchers from McFarlane. Now we're going to get into my bread and butter, which is the DC Multiverse 7-inch line. We'll start it off pretty simply. They are going to continue with their DC versus Vampire subline. This time it is going to be Nightwing. Now, we have received, I think, about 5 DC versus Vampires figures, but always cool to get a new one. And the artwork that has come out for the vampirized Nightwing version actually looks pretty sleek, so really interested to check that one out. Don't know if it will actually be on the Teen Titans body or maybe on the original Nightwing body that we received before. Who knows? We'll have to go ahead and wait and see. Now, we do have a minimal number of females, but they are some really important and nice female characters that we have been wanting. Now, this time it is going to be Cassandra Cain. Now, we do know her in her iconic black costume with the yellow trim. Really interested to see how she finally comes out in the end, but that is a character that most people have been wanting. So that's going to be another cool female to add to the collection. Now, I didn't offhand really know anything about this next character, but it is Rival. And upon looking into it, it is even like from the golden ages. And that is where Jay Garrick has like a sort of counterpart, like a darker version of himself. It's another professor or something like that that tries to take credit for Jay Garrick becoming the Flash. And he dresses up just like Jay Garrick, but like in a darker scheme. So I have seen some images of this guy before, and I always thought it was just them trying to make Jay Garrick look really cool and dark, but I had no idea that it was actually Rival. Now, honestly, I think this is just going to be some sort of reuse of the Jay Garrick figures we have received, but just in a darker scheme, maybe with some switched up parts to the costume. But always cool to add another speedster to the collection. We have tons of speedsters right now. I think we're getting close to 20 different speedster characters that McFarlane has released, from classic to live action to even new era. We're really starting to fill out that speedster section of the collection. And then we will be seeing actually Wally West in Flash form. Now, a lot of people don't really know the differences between the Flashes, but the thing is that Wally West, when he's younger, we've actually received that figure before. Although I think he was a little bit large, but there is sort of that mid part of his career. But once he actually takes the mantle of the Flash, he has basically a classic styled red and yellow costume, usually with a little bit more accent, maybe even some gold trim. But what really sets him apart usually is that he has the whited out eyes. That is something that even the Flashpoint Flash does not have. So who knows if it'll be that same Flashpoint Flash, just with whited out eyes and a little bit of paint details, or maybe they'll go back to the Rebirth body, or who knows, maybe it'll be a completely different scope, but it will be a Wally West version in the actual Flash costume. Now, I gotta warn everybody, we're actually gonna go into a heavy Batman little run here. A lot of Batman, but as we do know, here's the thing. Batman is really what keeps this line going. I'm pretty sure from the Batman sales, we've gotten a lot of different characters that we wouldn't normally get. And the thing is, with Batman sustaining the line, you could make the line go further, a longer period of time, and we will get the other characters that we want, riding off of the back of poor Batman, because of course, all companies that have the DC license pretty much make a lot of Batman. Just look at Mezco. I would say out of 20 figures, 15 of them are going to be a form of Batman, a version of Batman. So it's not anything new that we have to live with for the line to have some sort of longevity. And hey, there's actually a lot of Batman collectors that really only like the Batman figures. I mean, I know it's hard to hear, but it is true. And you know me, I don't really try to get caught up in what is released. I just take it for what it is. We could, voice the characters that we want, but really interesting that a lot of times you'll see a lot of people, asking for a character over and over again. And all of a sudden we actually get that character. One of the upcoming ones in this list is actually one I heard a lot of times, and now we are actually going to get the figure. So make your voices heard. I mean, it won't always make a huge difference, but it is something that I actually approve of. Now, the figures I just talked about right now are mostly gold label versions, so that always leaves the door open to have a different alternate version, but the upcoming ones are basically just standard releases. Now, a name I really like to hear, which is the Hellbat armor, is popping up again. We are going to get another version of this armored up Batman, but it is actually the Nightmare version. Now, I kind of have a hunch that when they actually made the Hellbat armor, it wasn't necessarily the way it was in the comics. And I did see some people make some customs that looked a lot different. And I was like, why does the custom ones look way different? They have like long claws and the body looks more sleek and lean compared to the bulkiness of the McFarlane version of the Hellbat armor. And that is because that is actually the Nightmare version. So hopefully McFarlane instead of just reusing the same Hellbat armor and just, adding some different paint, I would guess we'll get a different version of the Hellbat armor, which would be a lot more appealing to collectors that have been collecting the line since the beginning. Hopefully it'll be a different version. Now, also on the list is going to be Batman Rebirth, but it's labeled as Frostbite. Now, there is some obscure character named Frostbite, but I don't actually think that's what we're going to get. I think we're actually just going to get some sort of repaint or effects added to make this like a cold version of Batman in the snow or something like that. But we'll wait and see what eventually it is. Now, up next, we actually have two Batman from basically the same timeline in the comics. Now, the first one is labeled as Batman Knight's End. Now, it's pretty interesting because when I looked this up, a lot of times what came up was that red and gold armor that Azrael actually used. And I don't know why that, version of Batman kept popping up, but I'm not so sure if it'll be the Azrael figure that we got before, just switched up with the red and gold paint, or if it's going to be that like really long-eared, creepy, sort of spooky looking version of Batman, because that is, completely another way they could go. Batman from a lot of the covers of Nightfall and Night's End, you see that sort of spooky looking Batman. So not sure what it's going to be, but another thing that will be released is actually the black and gray Nightfall Batman. Now, I had told a lot of people when I would see customs and people repainting the Nightfall Batman to like a gray and black scheme, and I would tell them I'm not going to do that because I'm pretty sure that's a simple repaint for McFarlane, so he'll probably be doing that. And yes, eventually, now we see that that is what McFarlane is going to give us, is just the regular Nightfall Batman, just with a black and gray color scheme. Maybe he could throw a cloth cape in there. That would be pretty interesting, but I wouldn't hold my breath. But that is a big reason why I sort of stay clear of doing any customs that I think McFarlane will release in the future, because I'm just not going to waste my time and effort to like remaking a figure and making it a version that I want, when I'm pretty sure it's an easy repaint for McFarlane to release afterwards. So I'm really leery of doing any customs like that. I usually try to do more like custom concepts, right? Where you just bring things out of your own imagination. That way McFarlane would probably never make anything like that. But we are getting a redone Nightfall Batman. And finally, last but not least, out of the Batman little run here, we're going to actually get the first appearance of Batman. Now, this form of Batman is actually really known, really iconic. He has like purple gloves. Tons of figures have been released before, taking this, first appearance of Batman style. Usually the ears are a little bit different. Like I said, he usually has some different colored gloves, and the cowl usually has a distinct shape. But I'm really hyped for this. I usually like putting guns with that original first appearance of Batman, so that'll be pretty interesting. The old sort of noir version of the Caped Crusader. And now that you have survived all of that, we do get some different characters that we really want to see. First up, we're going to get an alternate version of Parallax. Now, this is actually labeled as GITD Parallax, so I'm not sure. I know there's still a version of Kyle Rayner when he's, has the Parallax spirit take him over. I don't think it'll be that one. I think it's just going to be a repaint of the gold label Parallax figure, which is an iteration of Hal Jordan as Parallax. So we'll have to wait and see what it's going to be, but it is on the list. And then after that, we are going to get another Megafig 2-pack. Now, I did state before when we got the Doomsday one that this was probably going to be a regular thing. McFarlane would give us a Megafig with just another figure, a regular 7-inch figure. And this time it is going to be Kilowog with a Kyle Rayner figure. Now, everybody's going to be Really happy to get Kilowog, especially in a mega fig form. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to be giant size. I just think he has to be pretty stout. He could even be about the Arkham Solomon Grundy size, and I think I would be happy with that. But if you made him a little bit bigger, I certainly would not complain. And then with the 2-pack, you're going to get a Kyle Rayner. Now, who knows what version of Kyle Rayner this will be? We did get the original green costume. Then we got the 90s updated costume. And then we got the blue gold label from the McFarlane toy store. So I'm not sure which version of these it's going to be. Maybe it'll even be a whole new Green Lantern body with the Kyle Rayner head on it, because McFarlane is expanding his Lantern Corps body types and body molds, which is really integral to give us different forms of Green Lantern. But as long as they all have that cool, same textured suit design and they all match together, would actually be pretty sweet. Now, after that, we do have McFarlane is still trying to get people into that digital figures, digital form of collecting. So they did show something like this when they revealed the Wonder Woman and I think Aquaman and Batman Rebirth. They were supposed to come with like a digital form of the figure. Now, we have yet to see that actual packaging and stuff like that, but this is what these figures are sort of labeled as digital. But we do know they're going to be actual physical 7-inch figures. Now, up first, we have a Batman Rebirth, which is, who knows? It's going to be probably that same Rebirth body that we've received before, just with a different color scheme. But two of the ones on here are actually pretty interesting. You're going to have a classic Aquaman, which should take us back to the short-haired blonde version, no beard, just your classic Aquaman costume, which I've really been looking forward to. And you also have a Hal Jordan classic, which the only thing I could really think is that they're going to use these newer Lantern body parts that they've made and molds to make a Hal Jordan that fits actually all the other Lantern suits that they're making. Of course, we had Batrocidus, Sinestro, and they all kind of fit together with that same really cool beaded grain to their costumes. And it's always cool to get different versions of the same character, so you could build different Justice Leagues or different teams. So I really think that is actually a positive. So we'll have to wait and see what this whole digital thing is, but you do get a physical 7-inch figure. They're just trying to get you, or get people interested into that digital collecting, which not for me. I'm like really anti-technology, so I really don't see myself getting into that, but you never know. There could be people that really enjoy that, so that's pretty interesting. And now finally we get to a character, the one I was talking about that I would always see in the comment sections, people asking for this figure, and it is going to be the collect-to-build wave of Plastic Man. Now, interestingly enough, this is labeled as Justice League of America forms of the characters. So you have Batman, Superman, once again Aquaman, and John Stewart Green Lantern. But, basically if you look up Justice League of America, you get some pretty classic standard versions of these characters. So interesting to see if these are going to be reuse or new molds, new sculpts. We'll just have to wait and see. But one thing for sure, the Plastic Man is going to be new sculpt. But that is a classic character that a lot of people have been clamoring for. So I'm really happy for everybody that wants different characters. Now, we do know that Batman is the backbone of this line, but it's always awesome to get different characters. And I, for one, am really excited to see what we'll see in the next coming year. Should be a lot of fun. Now, finally, I saved this for the end. This is going to be some live action figures. Basically, the last figure is something that I've actually been asking for. I know a lot of people want it, and it's glorious to see it finally come into our hands. Now, we're going to be talking about the Dark Knight trilogy. You do have on the list a Skydive Batman, which from what I could tell, the Dark Knight, it is when he goes to China and jumps off that building. Not sure what it's going to entail in the actual figure. Who knows if it'll have like a giant fabric cape, or I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's interesting. We'll take a look at it. But what I really love is we will actually be getting another awesome vehicle from McFarlane, and that is the Bat Pod. Now, we do know that in The Dark Knight Rises, Catwoman really got to show her stuff on the Bat Pod, especially in the third act. And you know me, I love me some Anne Hathaway Catwoman. Yummy. But there are going to be two versions. You're going to get a Bat Pod with Catwoman. Definitely looking forward to that. We do know how good Hathaway's Catwoman looked riding the Batpod, but you will also get a single release of Catwoman if you're not interested in the vehicle. But I mean, who the hell's not going to be interested in the Batpod? Everybody basically is, but pretty cool. You'll be getting two ways to pick up that Anne Hathaway Catwoman, and I'm loving it. I'm really looking forward to that. And then finally, the figure that I've always wanted. And when I hear people ask for figures, I'm like, oh, hopefully we'll get it. And I would always deep down say, you got to make this figure. And that is going to be the Batman from Batman v Superman, the original suit. Now, this could go a lot of ways because there's subtle hints of differences between the suits. But originally in the Snyder Batman v Superman, Affleck wore like a darker, almost all black form of the costume. Really iconic looking suit. Love that suit. Now, when they did Justice League, I think they added a little bit more gray tones to it. Tried to give it a little bit more lighter shades. So hopefully we'll get a, murdered out black version of the Batfleck suit, the original suit. Not the tech suit, which we've gotten numerous times, but really that awesome sort of tank version of Batman that I really love about Affleck's Batman. So finally, we'll actually be able to add that version of the Batsuit to our live action collection. So that's it, guys. That's the list for now. This will be coming up. I think I saw some of them said like May or something like that. So it's not, how it is with McFarlane. You close your eyes for a second and they're already releasing more figures. So pretty cool, pretty interesting. Hope you guys are excited for the upcoming 2024 year with McFarlane's DC Multiverse. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.